All right, so here's what I want you to remember through all the jeers and the sneers coming from the hecklers in the mainstream media. The greatest fear of every one of these mainstream media cowards, and make no mistake, they are cowards. They travel in packs, in gangs. They don't have the gall to produce a single original thought. Their greatest fear is that a number of politicians and activists will rise up who don't give a rip about their reputations as defined by the mainstream media. That's their greatest fear, because they know that's the day the edifice falls. That's the day corporatist globalist world of which the mainstream media and neocon Republicans, the great cowardly defenders, begins to really collapse. When a whole slew of politicians and activists, all united by their common despising of the political class, take their inspiration from President Trump and rise up and stare down these feckless, gutless calls to stop embarrassing yourself, they know that's the day this all ends. The globalist nightmare comes to an end. And people like Senator Hawley and Representative Mo Brooks are standing up and saying to the media, we don't care if we're seen as embarrassments in the eyes of a bunch of liars and frauds. We don't care. President Trump doesn't care. He never cared about how he's viewed by the morally myopic gaze of leftist globalist apologists. And I'm ecstatic to see that more and more Republican senators like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and Rand Paul share the same boldness and courage. They don't care what the cowards at CNN think. They don't care what the faux conservatives over at Fox think. They don't care what Karl Rove thinks or Geraldo Rivera or anyone else with an incurable case of inflated self-importance. They're standing up for the deplorables, for the men and women who get up every morning and make this country work, for people who don't think they get their way by burning down buildings and tearing down statues and disparaging and deriding our nation and its history and its culture, customs, and traditions. These are the people who are told by our health inspectors to shut down their businesses during the COVID lockdown and go back home and just deal with it. All the while, those same government officials, they send out monthly checks to a permanent underclass that's given them totalizing Democrat monopolies in virtually every urban metropolitan area, 4 of which gave Joe Biden his radically suspect so-called victory. And these bureaucrats would love to go back to pre-2016 conditions. They would love to go back to the days when deplorables felt like no one cared about them. But those days are over. The deplorables are now the heart and the soul of the new nationalist populist Republican Party. And I'm ecstatic to see people like Josh Hawley rise up and say, I'm one of them. In the midst of all the jeers and ridicule and heckling and the Marxists and the mainstream media, in the midst of all the scoffing and dismissive contempt from the Mittens Romney Republicans, we are seeing senators rise up. We're seeing representatives rise up and say, I am one of them. I'm a deplorable. I love my nation. I love its history. I love its ideals. I love its law enforcement. I love the citizens who wake up every morning and make the country work. I love the thousands of counties governed by faith, family, and freedom. And I refuse to allow the absurd antics of cowardly, cosmopolitan, gutless globalists define my reputation and whether or not I'm worthy of esteem in their eyes. The only opinion of my character that matters to me is the opinion of my family, my faith, and my community. The deplorables. They are the only ones whose opinion of my character matters to me. That's the kind of leadership that we need in our nation. And that's the kind of leadership that Senator Josh Hawley is demonstrating.